Postpartum depression and postnatal depression are on the rise. Or is it? Maybe it's also because a lot of women are finally breaking their silence. Hi and welcome to today's video where we're going to be diving into postpartum depression and postnatal depression for women. Now also just quickly for those of you who are new, my name is Evette and I'm going to be your host for this video for today. And I'm also best known for having written 19 books, and that's before this AI nonsense came out. But apart from that, having written this big book called Metaphysical Anatomy, which is a big book of 679 medical ailments and the psychosomatic stress of that for adults. And yes, postnatal depression and depression over everything is also in there. And we also have the kids version as well. So if you have children, you will love this. If you work with it, a fantastic resource for you. And your ancestor is talking. Are you listening? Now, today's topic for today's video is going to be great. This is something that is affecting so many women around the world. And I'm going to talk here a little bit also about my condition that the washing machine that I went through as well during my pregnancy and also after the pregnancy. I'm actually pregnant now with my second daughter. So there's been a lot that I've learned, and there's so much that I want to share with you with the intention to support and to help as best as possible. Now, let's just quickly also look at postpartum depression. This normally actually refers to like a minor or a very big depression that can start during pregnancy or up to 12 months postpartum after pregnancy as well. And what's really interesting also about this depression is that dads actually also are not immune. Now, the statistics and research continues to keep changing, but research actually shows, and the reason why it's changing is because more dads are actually speaking up. But research is showing that about 1 in 10 new fathers get depressed because, especially during the first year of their first child's birth. But this is also discussed in another video. Now I want to just touch very briefly quickly on my experience with giving birth and the pregnancy and everything that I also went through, because this was not an easy experience. My first pregnancy, for example, was really great. I thought everything was going really well. And then after the birth, things started to go the opposite direction. Even though I had the perfect support system, I had the perfect environment, what was really frustrating is that I couldn't understand why I was feeling the way that I did. And one of the reasons why I was sinking into quite a really dark place where I couldn't relate to my environment, I couldn't relate to my emotions, I was really feeling very down all the time. I feel like I'm seeing this beautiful child in front of me, but I felt so numb. And it was a very terrifying experience, to be honest, because when you look at your environment, and I'm like, there's nothing in my environment showing to me or that should cause me to feel the way that I do. This was a very deep internal process that was just unraveling, and I didn't understand what was becoming undone within me. Now, a lot was also that happening was hormonal changes. And this is something that I thought was what most other women will go through. I thought, wow, I'm so prepared. I have my tools. I can get through this. But it did end up coming back, and it bit me from behind. Now, this actually came a little bit after I gave birth, maybe like 2, 3, 4 months. Then when I started to feel I was going into quite a bad place. And one of the things that I realized and I learned from my own personal experience was the hormonal fluctuations that I actually went through, from the estrogen, the progesterone, all these hormones that's almost, increased by tenfold when you are pregnant. And then suddenly you're going through 9 months of your life where you get adjusted to these happy hormones and feeling so great and just so relaxed. And then suddenly we have to snap back into the life that we had once the child is born, right? So you live 9 months of your life adjusting neurologically, emotionally, and your lifestyle also adjusts to these shifts and changes. And then suddenly it's almost like this plug that just gets unplugged, and you have to go back to where you were prior. And I think for me, what was the biggest downfall was that I thought that the routine and the way of life that I had before I was pregnant was really great. But sometimes when we go through stress or we go through anxiety, we adapt to it so well that we don't even realize that it's there because it just becomes part of our lifestyle. And so with the hormonal fluctuations finally stopped, and I had to go back and plug back into this place where I used to be after having been in a much more relaxed phase and state. Most of you pregnant moms will probably know what I mean. You kind of like just, you don't care as much as you used to before you were pregnant, right? So there's a bit of a nice, it's like a gentle anesthetic basically feeling that you have when you're pregnant as well, but in a positive way, and because of the hormones. And I feel for me personally, what happened was I had a really hard time adjusting back to the life that I had, because it made me realize I was not as happy as what I thought I was. And it was no one's fault. It was just my process. It was my lack of boundaries with myself and lack of discipline with my health, my routine, my work schedule, everything. So when all of this started to come back, it felt that it was actually, I was moving into a dark place. But what I was also seeing was perhaps the filters that have dropped from the life that I used to have before I was pregnant. And so I was resisting moving back into that. And this resistance only added to my pain. It added to my sense of distress. I had this absolute resistance to plug back into it. But now you feel that you're in such a bad place and dark place that you don't know how to turn things around. Where do I even begin? How do I even begin to start creating a new life and process and structure when you're feeling so numb? You can't relate to people who's happy around you. People tell you, oh, it's going to be okay, when you feel like, well, shut up, you don't know anything, which is pretty much true. You know, when someone tells you everything's going to be okay, in that moment, it's like, no, it's not. And that's the worst thing to say to someone who's going through this type of depression. The best thing to say is just, I don't necessarily understand, but I'm here for you, right? Just to know that there's a compassionate witness, to know that there's this unwavering pillar or someone who could show up consistently when you're going through these bad moments, that already creates a sense of safety in itself, because it eased for me that feeling of like I'm losing control, not feeling in my power, feeling that I'm feeling so unresourceful. We don't like feeling unresourceful because that triggers a new set of feelings like guilt and shame and feeling embarrassed then to ask for help, right? Sometimes we feel like a failure. We want to be good moms. We don't want to feel like we're failures. So we end up suppressing so much to try to show the best face and the best mood possible, but we're suffering at the process, right? That's suffering in silence. And for me, the biggest mistake that I made was not asking for professional help. So I was not necessarily medically diagnosed with, postpartum or postnatal depression. But what made me realize that I needed to turn my life around was because that was very unlike me. That was like the old Evette from 15 years, 20 years ago, who went through teenage hormonal changes and shifts and dealing with trauma back then. But I've done the work. I've done a lot of work on myself. And for me to feel like I shifted back to this mindset, it was shocking. And that's when I realized, this is it. I am out of my depth now. And that's when I started to look and research into taking different vitamins, different supplements. There was something, because I knew, I could feel for me personally that this was hormonal related. Because it's almost like this feeling of you see yourself in two different forms. You know what you're capable of. You can see it, but you can't connect to it. You stay stuck in the state of numbness and not being able to relate to what's going on in your environment. Because one thing also that I fully agree with what I found in the DSM-5 was where they showed studies that there's this sudden drop in change after birth, because that's a huge trigger for postpartum depression. Because of these levels of estrogen and progesterone, right? This is our female reproductive hormones. It increases by tenfold, as I already said earlier. And then when this suddenly starts to drop, especially progesterone, because that's kind of like what makes you a little bit lazy, you're relaxed, you're very chilled, you just don't care. And then suddenly that's gone. And now you have to feel a lot of emotions and feelings again that you weren't used to feeling for almost 9 months. It can be a rude awakening when you have a break from your life the way that you thought it used to be and it was great. But when you go into this place of serenity and you shift back to that, it can be shocking. It can be absolutely shocking. And this is what I feel personally happened for me, because when we also look at during pregnancy, right? Your body goes through all these shifts, it goes through all these changes. Your brain chemistry shifts, your neurotransmitter shift, your mood shifts. But here's what's really interesting, because a lot of these changes, right, also contributing to this depression, is because of the decline in hormones that also disrupts the balance in the brain chemistry, affecting our neurotransmitters. And they also help us to regulate our moods. Now, let me touch a little bit on that, because this is very important. Now, neurotransmitters are chemicals in the brain that help to facilitate communication between the nerve cells, and also altercations in neurotransmitter levels, like, for example, serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, and also this can, contribute to a lot of mood disorders, including depression. Now, hormonal fluctuations during postpartum period can impact the availability and the utilization of these neurotransmitters, potentially then contributing to this depression. Now, one thing that when I found that research, I was thinking, oh my God, vitamin C. Why vitamin C? Because vitamin C is one of the best communication conductors and support systems for neurotransmitters. So if there's an imbalance in communication, vitamin C can help to stabilize that. Now, vitamin C is water soluble, which means you have to take it every 24 hours, but God, it's worth it, right? To just help to reestablish that communication, so that the communication can start to wire itself gradually over time to become healthy again. So because I started to go through this massive dip again, because I actually went off of the vitamin C after my first pregnancy, when I was after the birth, when I started to feel good again. But then I found myself actually dipping while I was pregnant with my second daughter. I'm like, what is going on? I was expecting to have another nice pregnancy like the first one. Why the sudden dip? So there was another hormonal shift. And so vitamin C, 2,000 milligrams for pregnant women is safe. And so I started taking that. And I noticed a huge improvement again. Huge improvement. After birth, you can take up to 5,000 milligrams. Now, there's a lot of doctors in their white suits saying, well, you shouldn't take more than 50 milligrams. It's absolute nonsense. So many doctors are not educated in vitamin and mineral nutrition, but they give legal advice based on that, right? So do your homework, do your research. But I'm not a healthcare practitioner. I'm merely sharing with you what I did for myself. Now, there are other vitamins that I also took, which I will be sharing with you very soon. But this was a huge improvement. And for me, I took it at night. Why at night? Because the body heals and regulates at nighttime. This is the best moment to be taking it. Now, when we look at these neurotransmitters and just this vitamin C and how this can make a huge impact, it was incredible. I cannot speak highly enough of it. But now also we have other functions as well, and processes that can come into play, and that is thyroid dysfunction. Now, this is normally also associated with a lot of mood disturbances, like for postpartum women especially. And especially if women have a sensitivity and a vulnerability to thyroid imbalances, right? So this plays a very big role in our mood, our energy levels, our overall well-being. And disruptions to the thyroid can also contribute to a lot of depressed symptoms. And that is why you have to find what is your formula. What is going to work for you? Like, for example, while I was pregnant and I was breastfeeding, I took protein powder combined with moringa powder. This helped my thyroid to really regulate itself and for me to feel physically stronger, to have more energy, and I even produced more breast milk as well. So this was a huge improvement, and I mixed it with almond milk. Huge improvement, like a day and night difference that I felt. So there's a lot of wonderful things that can be done naturally to help you to regulate yourself. But again, like I said, this might not work for everyone. Now, depression can also be an aftermath of psychosocial factors. And this can be, while, we have the hormones and the brain chemistry changes, there's also very important to recognize, how much sleep are you getting? Because listen, you can't take a pop of pill or vitamins to put sleep into your body. It just doesn't work that way. And of course, if you don't have support, if you don't have people that you can talk to, this is a huge problem that we have these days. Go for support circles, go for support groups. I join postnatal, Facebook groups and people where you can talk to anonymously. It's a wonderful source of support just to feel, wow, there's people who understand how I feel. Because feeling unrelatable, for me, that was the most isolating experience. The most isolating experience. To sit there and tell someone how you're feeling and they give you this blank stare like they just have no idea what you're talking about. For me, that was crippling. So I chose my audience and the people who I spoke to very carefully. And I spoke to people who I knew who would be able to understand me and who would be able to be the compassionate witness instead of just saying, you'll be okay, things will get better. Well, no, I don't want to hear that because it doesn't feel like that right now. You can't relate to that. For me, it made me actually even more angry. It made me feel even more hopeless because you're not talking to the right people, giving you the feedback that you need in that moment. So choose your support also very, very wisely and very carefully. Now, let's briefly quickly look at the signs of postnatal and postpartum depression, because this is when you start to feel, you're uninterested in your child, or you feel like you're not bonding with them. Maybe you feel like you're crying all the time for no reason. There's a lot of depressed moods, a lot of anger, a lot of crankiness, just a loss of happiness and pleasure in life, right? So feeling of worthlessness, feeling hopeless, feeling helpless, and thoughts of death and suicide, which was my trigger point, which I realized I'm not okay anymore, right? Because sometimes when we're in such a place of pain, we try to survive in that. And the harder we try to survive in that, the more used to this way of life and feelings we can become. And that is dangerous. Suicidal thoughts, helplessness, powerlessness, depression, these are not normal feelings. And they should not be a normal part of your life. Now, more symptoms here, just briefly to touch on, is like, for example, thoughts of hurting people or hurting yourself or hurting the child. And when you have a tremendous amount of trouble of concentrating or making decisions, like you're feeling almost like this feeling of having cotton balls in your brain, as I would call it, and you just feel like you just can't take that next step to make a decision. So there's so much that can happen, things that can go wrong. But quickly to share with you my formula. So during pregnancy, I took my 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C at nighttime. In the morning, I took my vitamin D3 and my combined with K2, which you can get at Lambert's. It's one of the best vitamin companies that I've ever found, with the most compact, nutritiously stacked vitamins. And I took my omega-3 tablets. I took my Strong Start tablet, which is a multivitamin for pregnant women. And that was basically it. That's what I took during my pregnancy. After pregnancy, I looked at my vitamin B complex. I started to take a bit more of vitamin B3 niacin, which soothes the nervous system, calcium, magnesium. And I stayed on my tablets that I actually took while I was pregnant, right? At least for a year, because it takes your body 2 years to heal after giving birth, right? So I stayed connected to the vitamins that I was taking there. And something else also that was really, really helpful for me was I increased my vitamin C intake. So I would take 2,000 milligrams at night and then 3,000 milligrams in the morning or in the afternoon with my vitamins. So that was a huge, huge improvement and impact for me. And if you're breastfeeding mothers, I can't speak highly enough of it. Almond milk with your protein shakes combined with moringa powder, it's the most potent supplement that you can give yourself to a mother, especially if you are sleep deprived. This is phenomenal. And even if you're not breastfeeding, just generally speaking in life, this is an absolute winning combination. And I invite you that if you're not in a good place, to be comfortable with saying that you're not okay, because this is now not just about you. This is about the health of you, of course, your child and your family. Because these factors are tremendously important, because these are the people and the environmental dynamics that you interact with on a daily basis. And this needs to be healthy, because if you see this being healthy, everything else in your life is going to thrive, and you are then also going to thrive. So mamas, I love you and I see you, and you're doing great. You're doing absolutely great. And remember to ask for support, ask for help if you need it. There's so many helplines internationally available. And know that every effort that you make is your best in that moment, because, this is what I also told myself. If I could have done better, then I would have. No one wakes up thinking how much can they ruin their life on a daily basis. We don't do that, right? So know that you're doing your best, and have people that can be compassionate witnesses. Join support groups, because that was huge as well. But please also reassess your vitamin intake. And remember that I'm not a healthcare practitioner. I'm not giving advice. I'm sharing with you what worked for me. So please do your research, dive into it, and take it from there. And one step at a time. And until next time, take care, mamas. So guys, there you have it. Also remember to subscribe to my channel, stay up to date. And also I have a free MAC membership website where we have so many courses up there. There's meditations, there's workshops, whatever you need, it's there. There's so many wonderful webinar replays as well that you can benefit from, and also to observe and to learn from. Guys, also remember that I have written 18 books. 18, 1-8. And one of many among them are Metaphysical Anatomy and Psychosomatics for Children. So this one is a Psychosomatics for adults. This one is a Psychosomatics for kids. So these books are super popular. People love it. If you want to learn more about how your body works, understanding messages behind it, maybe you have that gnawing pain or maybe an ailment that's surfacing and you want to understand what is it that your body is trying to tell you. Guys, these books are going to be absolutely invaluable to you. You can find it at evettebooks.com, where you will also find all my other 18 books. And guys, also remember to keep asking all these great questions. I love to answer your questions at Ask Evette, where we discuss, life conundrums and, life challenges, and just answer questions perhaps where you feel, quite stuck in your life. I would love to share my perspective with this and to help you to resolve perhaps certain pain points that you might be having in your life as well. So guys, remember to stay in touch. There's so many great things that's happening. And also something really awesome is that this book is already also in video format. So imagine 679 medical elements in video format, and with meditations and healing courses, workshops, masterclasses, everything behind that in our platinum membership site. So guys, remember to check that out. There is so many great things happening there. So see you there.